I've just clicked the record button. So, yeah, welcome to the September 9th, 2025 edition of the Gateway API community meeting. As always, this is an official CNCF meeting governed by the official CNCF Code of Conduct, which boils down to be nice. So please be nice, or something will happen. I guess you'll force the rest of us not to be nice to you or something like that. Don't make us go there. This is an open meeting. There is an open agenda. I shall now paste the link to the agenda in the chat if I can get that up. If you ever read Flynn's Gep, you don't need George Lucas storytelling. I am entirely unsure how I should take that. Moving right along. If you have not already, please add your name and affiliation in the agenda doc that I've posted there so that we can know who is here and whether these time slots work out well. And if you have an agenda item that we have not already put on the agenda, now would be a great time to add that too. But I think while people are doing that, we can get started by asking Shane, our illustrious release 1.4 release leader, fearless, something like that, for a status update on 1.4.
Yep. There's not necessarily a whole lot to say. So 140 has had a little bit of a creeping tail here. We froze, or we are supposed to freeze last week. We have this link here to the next announcement, which basically just announces that we are in API review, release candidates, and testing. And in particular, we have created a branch instead of an actual RC right now because we have one last lingering thing, which is we need to actually copy paste backend TLS policy over to V1, but it should still be testable with the conformance tests and stuff like that in the alpha APIs. So if anybody has a minute to go run some of the new conformance tests, basically put it through its paces, you can just use the release 1.4 branch for the moment. As soon as we have the last little bit of copy pasta over, we should be able to start cutting the first RC. API review is kind of in a weird state. In the past, we've kind of gotten feedback that like API review is kind of like, was very light and we were able to move forward very quickly with some of our minor releases. We did get some feedback from Antonio and Dan and Tim as he's kind of stepping out of his chair role that we may want to do a little bit more review this time. So we're kind of navigating that at the moment, but suffice to say, there's at least one PR up for that. And that's kind
Are
of the state
they
of things.
are they concerned about the amount of stuff in this release? Is this more of a
I think there's just
scheduling
a
thing,
I think there's a
transfer of
general
knowledge?
kind of resurgence in interest in doing more API review for these sub projects.
Mm.
I think that the GIE review may have sparked a little bit more interest in that, or a little bit more of a resurgence in that. Which would be a good thing. I mean, in general, it is a good thing. The timing is a little unfortunate, but so we don't really know exactly what to expect there yet. We're going to continue talking with Antonio and Dan and kind of get their feedback on uh, what needs to be done there. But I think we're probably going to do that, and then if they say you can cut an RC, things are close enough now that we don't feel like there's significant, then we'll cut an RC as soon as we can.
Sounds good. In general, I actually kind of like the idea of a release branch getting cut, so that makes me personally feel good.
Yep, yep. So
Um,
we'll cherry pick things in there as needed.
Candace had a question. I don't see Candace on this call, but she had a question about moving backend TLS policy to standard, requiring also moving policy to V1. Um,
I can jump in there. I was talking with her a bit about this.
I was about to say, I don't have context for this, and I would really love
Does she mean
context for this.
policy attachment?
Yeah, so if oh wait, that's what's weird. There's no screen share. So let me
Oh,
actually take
let
over.
me um, let
But
me
ba
share that so that people can see anyway.
basically what she's talking about, like she has a PR, should be one of the most recent ones. Yeah. If you I don't we probably should have linked the PR in the notes, but let me do that now.
Sounds
It's
good.
4074. And one of the changes that requires is moving the policy types from the V1 Alpha 2 directory to the v1 directory. The policy types really are two things. It's the target ref and it's the status, basically the shared API surface of any policy. The reason she had to move it to v1, the package, is backend TLS policy moved to v1 and was dependent on those things. I don't think that moving API types that aren't tied to an API to v1 necessarily means much. I think so. I think this is fine. That's my view of the world. But I'm open to other interpretation here.
My only take on this is along the lines of, wow, that seems like a pretty large change fairly late in the game, which worries me a little bit, but I don't seem to recall those particular APIs being terribly profound.
Yeah, like this is not a user facing change. This is a implementer facing change, basically, of if you were releasing a policy that used these types, you now need to point to v1 instead of v1 alpha 2. That's...
But we're copying them, right? Not moving them?
Oh yeah, I think
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
a copy. So
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I
the
guess you
point of
don't
this
even need to
PR
do
was
that.
just to move everything, so it shouldn't actually be functional changes. We just needed to get them out of get the actual V1 API minted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Norman, you had a hand up?
Yeah, I had exactly a question in regards to that. Do you usually copy stuff so that it's still available in both API versions, or do we move things so that it's only available in the newer API version? I was also
We
asking
move
the
an
question on the
alias usually.
Yeah.
We move an alias where appropriate. So if there's something that really isn't in V1, you might find it only in alpha, but for the most part, you'll see aliases, references from alpha to V1 Go types.
And the important
so then
bit.
the
Sorry, go ahead.
aliases are still missing, yeah. So okay. Then you have to just add alias for the things we moved.
Yeah, which I think was in that PR. Okay. That's
This
kind
PR
of-
seems to be
no.
just dropping the V1 alpha 3 type. Am I reading this right? I just started looking at the PR. Like just full copying it over, rather full moving it over and not leaving the V1 alpha 3 type behind. Is that right?
I need to take a closer look at it, but that does seem to be what it's doing. Yeah, and that might be okay, but it's not what we've done in the past.
It is not what we've done in the
Okay.
past.
I would,
Okay.
as my note implies, I would not be okay with not having the type alias, especially for something sliding in under the wire at the last minute, right?
Well, I mean, we to be clear, we knew backend TLS policy was going to V1 in this release. I guess it's just
Yeah, it's where it's that it's under V1 now. That is the change. But I think I lean towards we should leave the V1 alpha 3 type for now.
I don't see why we wouldn't. It doesn't seem to be damaging.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll put a comment in there that we talked about this. I'll follow up on that PR with a comment that we talked about this on the community call.
Cool. Anything else on 1.4?
Yeah, I added in the chat. I just came to say that there is an incompatible change when you vendor 1.4. You have an open issue. I put this in the meeting chat. That when some API div, I don't know, something with the structure div, the technical details are in the linked issue. This 4055. So you may consider to or bump the version in at the same time that you do the 1.40 release, or figure out.
Sorry, what? You're saying that Kubernetes dependencies, like I'm trying to read this, Kubernetes dependencies had a breaking change?
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Really?
That's it's when you vendor the That's the good thing of cloud provider kind, because you detect these things. But yeah, so all the people vendoring this, I don't know exactly. This guy PM Alec made a better analysis than I did, and I think that is in the packages. I think that is with the apply config or something like that. So I don't know if there is a workaround. I couldn't spend more time. But since all of you are implementing this, and I think that Flynn was already raising some concerns with some dependencies the other day in the chat. I don't know if you're related or not. I think that you should be aware, because you may release something and it's not going to work in some people, or it's going to work on the others.
Sorry.
So if you can do a sanity check on this, it would be good.
Sorry, I thought the conclusion from this was that we just need to bump to the latest Kubernetes dependencies, and once we have a release that has the latest 134 dependencies, this is fine. And the only issue is when you have bumped Kubernetes dependencies to 134 and try to import, a version of Gateway API that hasn't done that, then you run into trouble. Am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, no, that's exactly. But you are going to release
Okay.
1.4.0, right?
Yeah. So in 1.4, I think like we already have done the dependency bump as far as I
Oh, okay,
remember.
that's the part that I
The-
didn't know, and that's why I bring this.
Okay.
Okay, if you already did it, then
The
forget.
other, yeah. I feel like we also should say somewhere that, oh, hey, if you want to use Kubernetes 1.34, you can't use anything before Gateway API 1.4. And
Well,
that's
it's not like, it depends on what you're talking about, right? It's if you want to use Kubernetes 1.34 dependencies as a implementer, yes. And you want to use Go libraries, yes, these are things that are compatible. But obviously, like those Go libraries are going to work across a wide set of Kubernetes versions, and our current Gateway API dependencies should work with like a cluster on 134, even if it doesn't work nicely with.
Look, it's to be exact, it's the generated code, the one that has conflict. So
Yeah.
the APIs and the types are. If you regenerate the code, it's going to work in any API.
For the record, I did just confirm we are already bumped to 0.34 dependencies. So our next release should resolve this. That issue was, I think, talking about should we do a minor release for this?
Patch
I
release.
would rather focus all our efforts on just getting. Sorry, should we do a patch release for this? And I would rather focus all our efforts on just getting this minor release out instead. But
I would tend to agree with that in this case. Speed reading the bug report. Antonio, it would be really nice, really, really nice if Kubernetes itself had some sort of long-term stability for the APIs.
Yeah,
There
we
have been
are
so many
working.
times stuff like this has happened.
But this is with the generated code, and we are working internally, and hopefully we can also the way of doing releases of the types without breaking changes.
That
But
would
well,
be wonderful.
yeah, it's Rob is aware, and it's a long work, but we are progressing, and hopefully, but yeah. We already have mechanisms in Kubernetes. We added a job to avoid breaking compatibility between client Go and these dependencies.
Mhm.
That is there. We are not guaranteeing to not break compatibility, but this a change that triggered this job will require kind of API review. So that part is done. But then you have all these ramification like this a structure diff whatever thing that depends on 200 dependencies that are harder to narrow down. But well, we are working on that for sure.
Yep. All right. Anything else on 1.4? Thank you for bringing that up, Antonio. Going once, going twice. Okay. We will be doing a new release. Shocking, I know. After 1.4 comes some other release. We will be starting planning for that soon. Like maybe we'll be able to talk about that in the next couple of weeks, but we have to get together and figure out what things are staying the same between the current processes and what things are being different between the current processes. What I would say would be if you are interested in getting something into the next release, now would be a lovely time to go ahead and start working on your GEPs for what and why and who, but not how your thing would like to work. And more on that as events warrant. Any questions about that admittedly very vague announcement?
Yeah, just be thinking about what you want to propose and thinking about the what and why for those things.
Yeah, I'd like to emphasize again, do not start thinking too much about how. What we want to see first is what the change is supposed to be doing, why you want it to do that, and who it will affect. And how comes later. Rob, were you about to say something or?
I was. Do we want to have some kind of I guess we've talked about previous release and gotten some ideas about what we could do better next time
Mhm.
in previous meetings, but I don't know if that's been exhaustive. I don't know the best way to get feedback, but as we're going into the next release, I think getting a bit more feedback some way, somehow could be useful.
So I know that Shane has been collecting the existing feedback given for 1.4. Shane, do you think we've covered everything? I mean,
In the last round of asking for feedback, we did not get anything new.
Okay.
So we have a doc that is collecting all the feedback so far. We asked on the last meeting 2 Tuesdays ago, since I'm not able to join the Monday meetings anymore, for more feedback, didn't get any. So we can continue asking. People are more than welcome to put right here in the agenda, like feedback about the release, if there's any more to add.
Sorry, I'm late, folks. Hi.
Hi there. Dude, you're awake? What are you? It's like
Nick is online at
2 o'clock in the
11:22
morning?
a.m. Eastern.
No, it is currently 5:20 for me because I'm in Amsterdam.
Oh, well, welcome to Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Did you just join or have you been lurking the whole time?
No. I literally joined like a couple of minutes ago.
Okay, so you're just in time to speed read the stuff about 1.4, and I had literally just said, oh, we're going to be doing a release after 1.4, which we will probably be planning shortly, so more on that as events warrant, but now would be a great time to start thinking about your what, why, and who GEPs, focusing on how later.
Yes.
Um,
So, I mean,
yeah.
like I did want to emphasize. So it's good I arrived in time. I did want to emphasize that, yeah, like provisional state is outside the release cycle cadence. So you can be working on your what, why, and who GEPs now. The thing that is not guaranteed is when like the main reviewers are busy with like release stuff, then we might not get to the GEP to review it for a while. But there's no reason why you can't open the PR and have other people review it and be making some rounds of changes at any time. I think that one of the things I want to look at doing for the next release is I have a couple of ideas about how we can make it a bit clearer about what the actual transition point is
Yeah.
for things moving. And so, like, what do you need to have done for a thing to be able to move to implementable? And what do you need to have done for a thing to move from implementable to experimental, and then from experimental to standard? So there's like, I'd like to write down in the get process thing, you need to have done the following set of things for your GEP to move to implementable. Some of which will be, be included in a release scope, have a GEP PR merged, that sort of stuff. But like, I'd like to have I'd really like to have that very clearly written down in both the GEP things and preferably in the release docs. So that means that I really would like it to be that everyone is really clear with that makes the deadlines be, you need to have done these things by these dates. Like if you want your thing to be in release, it needs to be implementable by this date. And so to me, that feels like it's a bit more fair because it gives us, I think one of the things I've found is that it can feel a bit arbitrary. Like the dates we picked can feel a bit arbitrary because we didn't explain like why we needed the date to happen on those days. And so this is like, well, your thing needs to be implementable by this date, so we have enough time to do the API changes and get those to happen so that then it can be experimental by this date, so that then we have enough time to make it, to have the review happen, so that then it can be in the release. Like, and so making those dates sort of strongly associated with transitions in the GEP states should make it easier to understand why we have those deadlines.
Yep. Anything else on that from anybody? Nick, how long are you in Amsterdam? Just out of curiosity.
Just this week.
Okay, so
and-
perhaps this week we should try to get together and do some planning for the next release while you're in a time zone where that's easy.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah. I am at an offsite, so yeah, but we should be able to figure something out.
It'll still be easier than having you in bloody Australia. So
Yeah, it's much easier to do something at like 7 p.m. my European time than to do something at 1 a.m. Australian time.
yeah, exactly. All right. Next bit, while Shane goes ahead and types in the notes there. Some of you may have seen that there is now a working group AI Gateway that exists. Yay! There are links there into the charter. The main thing that I wanted to call out was both that it exists and that we have a bunch of inference things that are primarily focusing on kind of the service level of things with, oh, how do we get requests to this particular chunk of inference? And the point of the AI Gateway Working Group is to start looking at things a little bit higher level, at the gateway level, at the routing level, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you are interested, then you can click on the links and figure out how to get involved. There is a PR open right now for having a Slack channel created, and we will, of course, let people know when that happens. Yes, Rob.
So I don't know who controls mailing lists, but I tried to join and I can't. It doesn't give me access. So just FYI, whoever, maybe that'll just get sorted in time.
I am
I don't-
going to
Um,
make a note of that because that feels like a thing that should happen.
Yeah, and I know
Why
Dan
not?
and Dan's son and Near are kind of working on getting the meetings set up too. So there's a couple things that aren't quite configured yet. It just merged this morning.
Cool. One question, I know this is a working group, and it sounds like the working group will be focused on things that are in Gateway API. Like GIE is focused on things that are a bit below Gateway API, like it's a custom backend. And this, yeah, if I'm understanding the scope correctly, is like really gateway and route level config, which is exciting. But does that mean that the outcome of this working group is to make recommendations primarily to this group, like Gateway API, or is there something
No.
else?
Not necessarily. I
Okay.
think we'll have recommendations or proposals for Gateway API. I think we'll also have this. We're probably going to have recommendations and proposals for GIE. There's always a chance we recommend new sub projects, and then we also have SIG Multicluster is on board. They wanted to join and sponsor, so there may be things to do there, which we need to navigate with the MCS thing, because there's like there's kind of an outstanding expectation that there's an egress use case that would also potentially serve multi-cluster. So let's talk about it at some point. But no, it's not going to be it's just a Gateway API working group that only proposes things to Gateway API.
Actually, we're just going to try to arrange it so that everything we recommend is work for you personally, Rob.
Perfect. I love it. Cool. Okay. Yeah. No.
Seriously, does that answer the question, or kind of as much as it can be answered right now?
Yeah. I mean, it's just that the more distinct groups we have, the harder it becomes to keep track of. Like, for example, I think it would be frustrating if this working group comes up with a really cool idea that is extending Gateway, the resource, and then you've got it mostly nailed down, and then you propose it to Gateway API and you hit you know, an awkward time in the release cycle, and we say, okay, wait for like 3 months and come back, right? That feels suboptimal. So like maybe some discussion about our next release should overlap with how we handle this working group.
Yeah,
I
very
don't
possibly.
know.
One of the hopes that I have for this working group is that it can also serve as sort of a clearinghouse or a coordination point across some of these other things, so that maybe we can actually do a better job of coordinating between these various things. I realize that might be hopelessly optimistic of me, but you know, it's a hope. So, yeah.
Cool.
Any other questions on that? Also, very vague announcement. No. Okay, Rob. Rob has a maintainer update, which is sad.
It is sad. I didn't see anyone else add this. I don't need to be the one
I'm
to
glad you
share
did.
it, but Mattia sent out an update today to the broader SIG network mailing list. Unfortunately, he's been, I mean, he I'm sure could say it better than I can via his email, but he's been pretty underwater and hasn't had the time he would like to spend on Gateway API things, and so he's decided to step down. You know, we will. You know, I don't think this is him stepping away from the project entirely. It's just that he hasn't had the time that he'd like to spend as a maintainer. You know, I know Mattia's not here, but hopefully he hears this. And I've said this in other forums, but we would not be where we are without Mattia. He's been absolutely awesome as a maintainer. Really, really grateful for the many hours and days and weeks of his time that he spent to help get this project where it is. You know, I think in particular the thing that I am most grateful for is the work he did to push our conformance forward.
Yeah.
Really helpful. So yeah, grateful for all that he's done for the community, and unfortunately, he's had to step back. But yeah, that's the update. I don't know if anyone else wants to add anything, but just thanks, Mattia.
Yeah, I'd like to say an official thanks on the record too, for everything, Mattia, that you've done. Hopefully you watch this recording. But yeah, like again, I also really want to thank him for the conformance test work. But like the conformance suite is his work. We would not be in as good a state as we are with our conformance today, where we have something that's, you know, buildable on, that we all agree on and everyone is behind, without Mattia. Aside from the other all of the other awesome stuff that he has done while he's been a maintainer, you know, I think the absolute highlight is the awesome work he's done on conformance for us. So thanks very much, Mattia. Really appreciate you everything you've done. But more importantly, I think the other thing that's really important to call out here is that Mattia has done like the very difficult but big thing to do here, which is to say, hey, you know, there's no point in me holding on to this title. Like I can't do the thing that, you know, I can't give it the attention it deserves. And I really think we also applaud him for being, you know, for being ready to, you know, hand back a pretty big feather in your cap by, you know, by giving up the maintainer spot. So thanks a lot, Mattia, for, you know, showing like really great leadership in knowing when to walk away as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Mattia.
We should have put that last because now everybody feels like they shouldn't say anything. You know?
Right.
Yes, many thanks to Mattia. Next item is also Rob. GIE is doing a 1.0.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that happened yesterday afternoon. The 1.0 it has one pretty narrow GA thing, and that's inference pool. That's that custom kind of backend. All the objectives, all the things for configuring endpoint picker are still alpha and very experimental. But the way, you know, the way to define the backend, the way you call out to the thing we call endpoint picker, is GA. It's just everything inside, everything how you configure endpoint picker is still, you know, experimental. But still a huge milestone. You know,
Yeah.
I cannot believe how quickly we've gotten some momentum here. I think we now have 7 conformant implementations of the API. And you know, we have one non-Envoy based implementation that I know of right now, but another one, Nginx, is awesome. They're coming around and they have a plan for how they're going to implement it too. So more
Cool.
are on the way. But
Glad to
yeah,
hear it.
Who's the one non-Envoy based one, for the record?
it's Agent Gateway, which is based on custom Rust data plane.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Figured I'd ask. Cool. Continuing with Rob.
Oh yeah, okay. I keep on going. Sweet. All
Yeah,
right.
there's a multi-cluster inference group now.
Yeah, so I mean, this has been, yeah, you know, in the works for a couple months at least. But there's a couple PRs. There's a doc before the PR. I think I shared this at some previous meeting here, but definitely in SIG multi-cluster and in GIE meetings for a few weeks. But we've been talking about this for a while. I figured I'd at least mention it here as well. It's basically if you take inference pool and you say, hey, let's make it multi-cluster. You know, what we've seen from very real feedback from multiple vendors is that not all my GPUs are in the same place, and I really would like to optimize as many of them as I can, and fully utilize them. And we're hoping that multi-cluster routing will help with that. That first PR I linked is kind of the original PR for this. Danian has a PR below that, which is actually augmenting that original PR with a lot more detail. I am hopeful that this is a couple weeks away from merging as, you know, a gap type thing that we've accepted. But if you have ideas, if you have feedback, this is proposing, you know, a different way of doing. It's not that different, but it's not multi-cluster service, because multi-cluster service is very tied to a specific API type, and this is not that. So yeah, anyways,
Cool.
just heads up.
Sounds good. Anything else before we get into Kubernetes traffic distribution, which I'm sure will be a quick and non-controversial topic? Actually, is Isaac here?
नहीं तो मैंने मुझे गाली सुनी
Sorry, say again?
I think they may have accidentally unmuted. I don't
Seems
think
like
that's
it.
Isaac.
Okay.
I do not see Isaac on the call.
Nor do I. Let's take a quick look at this. I think that it literally is, hey, how should implementation support traffic distribution?
Oh man, this is my own
yeah.
issue. Yikes.
Yeah, you created that like pushing a year and a half ago. I was about to say, if only we had someone on the call who could talk it all about traffic distribution in Kubernetes.
Yeah, I guess this is on me. Yeah, like I guess I said in the past, this is non-trivial to resolve. I think we can absolutely provide some high-level guidance of, hey, you should pay attention to this, but I don't think we can really do conformance tests here. It's hard for me to imagine conformance tests that would solve everything. So yeah, I think if anyone is interested in taking this on, it looks like somebody had wanted to pull this in a couple months ago and maybe lost momentum. But I'm open to help here. My high level idea would be, if you have a way to support something resembling traffic distribution, which, for a reminder, there's one value, it's prefers same zone. So like if you can tell the zone traffic originated from and do something to prefer routing back to that same zone, that's useful. But the
There's-
prefer is kind of a key word here, and because it's prefer and not require, it's hard to write any tests about it, because like, how do you really know that? Yeah, there are. Mike has a good question. Are there upstream conformance tests? There are for this, but that's basically conformance tests for kubeproxy or any Kubernetes data plane. But the
Yeah, I'm
functionality
basically
there
looking
is
for like
so
Istio prior
limited.
art. I'm looking for like
Yeah,
Istio
it's
prior art
basically-
that can do something with like, does Istio have similar behavior to what Kubernetes?
Yeah, like, so for example, in Kubernetes, the only thing we do is if there are ready endpoints in the zone, we should route to that zone. But
which you could write a conformance test for.
Which you could, absolutely.
Yeah.
But what a more aware implementation would hopefully do would be if there are ready endpoints with capacity. And
Right.
that's a very difficult thing to write conformance tests for. And a very legitimate implementation could fail conformance tests if it deemed that the local endpoint did not have capacity. So that's,
Ironically, you've just described one of the most difficult things about demoing the Linkerd feature, which does exactly this.
Yeah, right. So writing conformance tests could actually be, detrimental to Linkerd or someone like that has a more
Yeah.
advanced implementation.
Nick, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, I think at a minimum, anything we do here, like A, needs GEP, B, and definitely needs to be an extended feature, right? Like, so then
Yeah.
Implementations can opt into that behavior once we figure out what it is. But we need to, step one is figure out what the behavior that we're actually talking about here is. And like, does the gateway need to be told like what zone it's in, or is this a thing that's completely implicit? Like, do we want specific config for that or not? Like, that's the sort of question that the GEP will need to answer. Is like, how do we need to add anything to Gateway API to capture this information, or like, is this just implementations can make use of it, make it use to the existing Kubernetes primitives, and that's enough. Like, I don't know enough about exactly how that traffic distribution part works to like, to be able to make a call. So, yeah, those would be my thoughts.
As I understand it, it's literally just using the existing Kubernetes zone labels and then preferring to go to endpoints in that zone, right, Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I would hope that we wouldn't need specific extra config on a gateway to say you
It
should
does.
run this, right?
I mean, the one thing is it made the conformance test and upstream more annoying to run, because like 99% of tests in Kubernetes run in a single zone cluster somewhere. Like, it's a real pain. But yeah,
That's okay, Rob. It's really easy to teach people how to create multi-zone clusters with K3D and kind.
I mean, they actually do run in kind. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. I would tend to agree with Nick wholeheartedly that anything we do here needs a GEP. And so that seems like the first step.
Yeah. First step is a provisional GEP explaining the problem, outlining like who it affects, like, and the next steps and stuff like that. Like, a who, what, why GEP is a provisional, it's provisional, and provisional is the first step. And then we can figure out, I think, if we're gonna have actual guidance, that's a GEP that still needs to go through the release process. If it's a memorandum GEP, because it doesn't actually require any API changes, then maybe. But if it's also going to be introducing conformance tests, I would argue that then puts it sort of across the line into like a regular GEP, not a memorandum GEP.
Yeah, I would also tend to agree with that. That was actually weirdly much simpler and less controversial than I thought it would be. Wow. So we have 16 minutes left. If anybody has any last minute stuff, now would be an excellent time to bring it up. Otherwise, we can give everybody 16 minutes back in their day. I guess it'll be 15 minutes now. Sorry. Anybody? Going once, going twice.
A
All
question from my
right, gone. We will see y'all. Well, I'll definitely see y'all in 2 weeks. And there's another Gateway
Cool. Yeah,
API
hopefully
meeting
I'll
on Monday.
catch up with you later this week.
Yeah, sounds good. We should make that happen.
hello.
Enjoy. Thanks everyone.
Yeah. Okay, I'll see you all around. Bye.